This episode has been 4 years in the making, so stick around. Hello, fellow dorks and dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name is Rob, and like I said, this episode has been 4 years in the making. The last time we talked about this subject, it was February of 2019, and boy, has the world changed since then. Heck, I've changed since then. Look at this picture of me from that very episode. I look like a man that has hopes and dreams and drive for the future, and not this broken down husk that you see here today. Anyway, what we will be talking about are big wheels, or plastic tricycles as they're known throughout the industry. Big wheels was just a brand name for a bunch of plastic tricycles that all had the same feature. Very small back wheels and a very large front wheel. To be completely honest, I never had a big wheel, and well, I think the disclaimer from the first episode with slight modification sums it up pretty well. Yes, like I said, I grew up with a gravel driveway, and just right across the street from me was a shopping center, and right past that was a major highway. So when I was that young of age to enjoy a big wheel, there was no way in heck that I could ride one. I mean, imagine being on gravel with those plastic wheels. And yeah, imagine if I got a little squirrely and headed out to the highway, like the awesome Judas Priest song. Anyway, the original episode from 2019 has been very popular, and a lot of people still comment on it today because they're stumbling upon it. So, through those many comments that we get, I decided it was time to do a follow-up to it, because a lot of people, call out that I forgot certain beloved big wheels of the time. And the only reason that they were skipped over the first time around was, A, I can't have a list of dozens and dozens of awesome big wheels, and B, because I was kind of aiming for very specific character properties and the awesome features that the big wheels had, like, big ornamentation on the front or play features. And some of these, although very popular, didn't have those really cool little touches. So anyway, without further ado, 4 years later, let's get back to some of the best big wheels of the 1980s. Number one on the list comes from probably the most popular big wheel that I got so many comments about. A lot of people are passionate about this plastic tricycle, and they let me know about it. And, with not mincing words, they called me bonehead for not including it. And, yeah, I was, but I'll give you the reason why in a moment. Anyway, this very, very popular big wheel was the Dukes of Hazzard Power Cycle, released by Coleco. They also released a Daisy Duke Power Cycle, also by Coleco. So you had one for the boys and one for the girls. Anyway, both of these power cycles featured iconic pictures from the show, and both were based on each Duke family member's vehicle of choice. Of course, for the Duke boys, you had the General Lee. Now, looking at this, I have found that there are two different versions of this big wheel. There is one that is very bare bones, and one that has, for lack of a better term, like a bug shield on the front. Both of them feature the same stickers, General Lee on the side, stars on the wheels, and a picture of the Duke boys on the seat. And they both have tassels coming from the handlebars, which is pretty cool. Now, this, along with most of the big wheels and power cycles and things like that, had the iconic braking mechanism that you could, as you're speeding down the road, you pull it and you can, burn out, into a power slide. Anyway, just an awesome feature I just have to throw in there. Anyway, Daisy's is kind of based more on her, iconic white Jeep that she drove around, and still had a picture of her on it and different, iconic stickers and images that invoke the Dukes of Hazzard and her Jeep. Now, the only reason that I did not include it on the original list was it didn't feature any of the, bells and whistles that the other big wheels had. I mean, it didn't have like a big plastic figurehead on the front of like the General Lee, or, a horn that you would, push and nothing like that. So I left it off the list just because it's very simplistic, but it seems that everybody's a fan of that simplicity, because this is just a down and dirty big wheel, and, the bells and whistles are within itself being a big wheel. Number 2 on the list also comes from Coleco's Power Cycle line, and was based on one of Coleco's biggest properties. Heck, it was one of the biggest properties of the 80s as a whole, and that is the Cabbage Patch Kids. Now, it had a pretty neat play feature, and that was it had a trunk, if you will, on the back. A basket. Maybe that's a better way to phrase it. A basket so you could, tote around your Cabbage Patch doll. Now, this was also used for their Pound Puppy power cycle, so you could, bring your puppies or kitties or whatever pound animal you want to tow around in the back. So it's pretty cool to see that they used this awesome feature on 2 different versions of their power cycles. Now, for me, I'm man enough to admit that I loved Cabbage Patch Kids. I think everyone kind of bought into the fever at that time because it was just sold to us as kids as being the next big thing. I mean, we saw videos of parents fist fighting over them. We saw that they were, in demand and hard to come by, and I thought they were pretty cool. I mean, I eventually got one, probably when I was, more older than I should have been to play with a Cabbage Patch Kid, but anyway, like I said, I'm man enough to admit it. I'm also man enough to admit that I love the colors of this bike. That mint green, if you will, of the tires just pops. I love it. Other than the, little trunk feature, it also had, an emblem on the front of a cabbage opening with a freaky, bald-headed baby's face on it. So imagine that screaming down the sidewalk at you, coming right at you, this freaky baby head. Anyway, on to number 3. Number 3 on the list, I have to say I might be cheating here because they might come from the 70s, but I think they're too cool not to include. And I'm sure there was a, holdover of them into the 80s, so I'm banking on that. Anyway, they are SpiderMan and the Incredible Hulk Hot Cycles, released by Empire. Now, Empire would be the company that would eventually get the license for big wheels from Marx, but when they first hit the market, they sold them under Hot Cycles. Now, I love everything about these. The simplistic 70s, early 80s, iconic characters of Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk Hot Cycle alone looks tremendous. I mean, I love that purple and green combo. It just pops. That plastic, nice and glossy, just looks great. Either way, these are both just really awesome big wheels, and I just had to include them on the list. Now, I apologize if they're not truly from the 80s, but now this Hulk Hot Cycle, I just needed to get the word out, so apologies. Number 4 comes from one of my biggest heroes in the 1980s, and he is probably one of yours as well. He appeared in popular TV shows like The A-Team, huge blockbuster films like Rocky, and appeared on WWF alongside Hulk Hogan. Now, who are we talking about? The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. T. Now, this official Mr. T big wheel came from Empire after they bought out the rights from Marx. Now, this big wheel was released around the same time as the Mr. T cartoon from Hanna-Barbera. As you can see that the gymnast characters from the show are appearing in stars down the front of the bike, and you have the Mr. T logo from Hanna-Barbera where it's his fist holding the T. Say what you will about the cartoon, but I honestly was a huge fan at the time. I mean, it's Mr. T, so I tuned in every Saturday morning, and yeah, for all of its faults, including a dog with a mohawk and a little Caucasian boy pretending to be Mr. T, it still was entertaining. I mean, it had that Johnny Quest element, if you will, of just weird crap like, dangerous lizards and alligators attacking these gymnast kids that are, doing elaborate tricks to get out of danger. And, Mr. T just punching the crap out of people. That's all you need. Now, I had no idea this existed when I was a kid, and to be honest with you, I think I would have forgotten that I had a gravel driveway to get my hands on this Mr. T big wheel. Number 5 is another official big wheel released by Empire. This time it comes from a toy that has been iconic since the 60s, and that is Barbie. Now, the awesome standout feature to this big wheel is that it has a seat right on the front for Barbie to relax in and jet around with you across the neighborhood or wherever your adventure takes you. Now, this features the really iconic, to me, artwork and stylings of early 80s Barbie. There's just something about it that churns up nostalgia in me. I mean, because Barbie was everywhere. Commercials every Saturday morning, every afternoon. My cousins played with Barbie. I mean, Barbie was everywhere. Even the colors and the iconic artwork on the stickers on this thing, just make me feel really nostalgic. I mean, and how cool is that you can take your favorite doll with you wherever you go because of the awesome seat on the front with included seatbelt, because that would suck if Barbie, flopped out and you ran over her. But, that's a story for another day. Number 6 shares the Power Cycle name, but wasn't released by Coleco. It was released by Playskool. And let me point out that a toy company that prided themselves on educational material, why couldn't they spell school correctly? Anyway, this Power Cycle is Batman. And this is my favorite version of Batman, the blue and gray version, because that's the one I grew up with. And again, I think I might be cheating because I've seen some listings that peg this as coming out in the 70s, but just the artwork that's on the box and on the bike itself scream Kenner's Superpower Collection and the Super Friends Power Hour that we were enjoying on Saturday mornings. I just absolutely love all the Batman stickers on this big wheel, Power Cycle. I mean, they are just beautiful, crisp, detailed artwork of the Caped Crusader. I mean, the wheel itself has an awesome repeating pattern of Batman. On the front of it, just great artwork, and I love it. And, of course, the huge bat signal right on the front. And Batman on the seat. Number 7 is another one in Playskool's Power Cycle line, and believe me, I'm not doing this on purpose, but just how it worked out. Anyway, this one is the WWF Superstars Power Cycle. Now, this is another one that I am apparently cheating on, because after I did a little bit more research, it was released in 1991, but yeah, the train was already out of the station, and yeah, I'm going with it. So, I apologize. Anyway, this WWF Superstars Power Cycle featured iconic photographs of all the popular wrestlers at the time. Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, And the wheel itself featured different stickers of different wrestlers. Unfortunately, I have not been able to find a perfect HD photo where I can, pick out which wrestlers were featured, but I think I saw Big Boss Man and Jake the Snake Roberts, but other than that, I can't even venture a guess of who was appearing on the wheel. Now, this is very bare bones. I mean, no real, features stand out. It's not even really, colorful or pops in any way. It just, it's a basic Power Cycle big wheel for the WWF. You would hope that it would have a little bit more going on, but I guess for what it is, it's pretty cool. Number 8 on the list is a twofer because it features a happily married couple. These Power Cycles were released by Coleco and they featured PacMan and Miss PacMan. The most awesome feature that both of these Power Cycles have is the wheel covers. They feature PacMan and Miss PacMan themselves right there. That is a really imaginative use of a wheel cover and just a simple sticker application to make it look like an open mouth and eyes and a bow for these Power Cycles. The artwork on them is from the arcade classic, the awesome cabinet artwork of the ghosts and the power pellets and all that awesome iconic imagery. Now, Pac-Man's Power Cycle just appears in yellow and black. But Miss Pac-Man's color scheme takes me right back to the arcade because it features the same color scheme that we saw on the arcade cabinets of that blue and pink. It just pops and looks beautiful on this Power Cycle. I think it looks great. Pac-Man's is pretty cool, but Miss Pac-Man absolutely takes the cake, or power pellet in this case. Now, number 9 on the list is a book-ending number 9 from the first episode, and that is The Muppet Show again. We talked about Kermit in that one. This one, we're talking about Miss Piggy. Now, the Miss Piggy big wheel doesn't feature a great, character seat like the Kermit one, where it's actually Kermit himself. This one features an awesome sticker of Miss Piggy. And for some reason, the photo that they used takes me right back to the Great Muppet Caper of when she drove her motorcycle, through the glass, and just that iconic scene from the movie. That iconic scene that is even featured on the collectible glass from McDonald's. Unfortunately, this big wheel was not for the Great Muppet Caper. It was under the Muppet Show moniker. But this has some really neat features to it. It has gem, stars, and hearts in the wheel. A star on the front that I'm not 100% sure what it did, but it may be on a spring that it kind of bounces. But, it featured the same iconic color scheme of Miss Piggy herself of being white and pink. Number 10 comes from another 80s iconic pop culture franchise, and that is the Care Bears. Again, I have found that there are 2 different versions dependent on age. One is like a little tyke version, and the other is for a bigger kid. Now, the little kid one features great stars and rainbow sticker work on the wheels and on the front, and has a nice Care Bears heart logo with Tender Heart Bear on the seat. But the one that we want to focus on is for the bigger kids, and it featured a actual molded Care Bear seat. Now, that is cool by itself, but the one thing that really stands out is the front wheel. It looks like just a normal wheel. It's not a solid plastic. It actually has spokes, if you will. Now, the reason that it might be different than your typical plastic tricycle like big wheels or Power Cycles is because it's from a toy manufacturer that we haven't seen on the list before. It was made by Hedstrom, which was a very popular tricycle manufacturer at the time. And I mean like old school metal rubber wheel tricycle. Not the plastic tricycles that we're talking about in this episode. So maybe that's why there's a little bit of different innovation to this model than the others, because it comes from an actual bike manufacturer. Number 11 comes from another popular 80s video game. Unfortunately, it's a character you don't see that much of nowadays, but in the 80s, he was everywhere. He even had a cartoon series. That character was Qbert. Now, this is another Coleco power cycle, and yeah, I was a huge fan of Qbert. I think I've mentioned it in other episodes where I remember playing the arcade cabinet, and when Qbert actually fell off the pyramid, there was some type of mechanism in the cabinet where it sounded like he hit the bottom of the machine. You know, he's and you would hear a clang in the bottom of the machine. Yeah, that was so awesome. I've never seen innovation like that since, and yeah, they should really bring stuff like that back. Anyway, onto the power cycle. Now, the power cycle itself was very eye-catching because it featured the colors that Qbert was iconic for, orange and yellow. It also had a blue steering wheel that just popped, and it featured awesome artwork from the game. Now, the one thing that really stands out to me is the sticker that's on the wheel is kind of reminiscent of those awesome discs that Qbert could jump on to get back to the top of the pyramid. And that would just make the power cycle go even faster, in my opinion. Number 12 is a big wheel that I would throw so much money at today. It is something that I would find the budget for and space for in the laundry room. And it is one that I didn't even know existed until researching this episode. And that is another power cycle released by Coleco. And this is the Gremlins power cycle. Gremlins. I mean, you had me right there. But the biggest standout feature of this power cycle was Gizmo's head, right there on the handlebars. Now, I have not been able to find a lot of, evidence of the existence of this power cycle online other than the pictures of the box. Now, hopefully when I'm editing and cleaning up this episode and doing a little bit more, internet sleuthing to find cool pictures and things, I might be able to stumble upon some more, but up to this point, I've not been able to find anything but this box. But the box has a awesome little note on it that, of a play feature that this power cycle had. And that was Gizmo's eyes would open and close. Now, I can't read the verbiage around this, but I don't know how that would happen. I mean, just with every pedal he would blink or some button. I don't know, but that is so cute. Now, this featured that awesome artwork from the Gremlins, movie that we saw like on the records and the stickers and things like that all over this thing. I mean, there's stripe on the seat. I mean, stripes on the box. And the wheel features different artwork that I can't really figure out what it is, but it's going to be awesome. That I can guarantee you. But like I said, this is something that didn't know existed, and I want it in my life so bad. That huge Gizmo head is just perfection. And yeah, I'm a huge Gremlins fan, and I can't believe this thing just never appeared on my radar until, doing this list. So, for all those people wanting a follow-up, thank you. Because now I know of the existence of this power cycle, and I'm going to have a longing for it probably until the day I die. Our final big wheel Plastic Tricycle, Power Cycle, what have you, is from one of the biggest toy franchises of the 1980s. Yes, I've said biggest franchises a few times on this list, but we're talking about the cream of the crop. Now, this one is definitely one of the most popular boys' toys of the 1980s. Heck, it's something that is still being sold today because nostalgia is a moneymaker, and that is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. There were 2 different cycles released from 2 different companies. The first one was released by Tonka in their Mighty Cycle line, which, after doing some research, there were only 2 Mighty Cycles on the market. Now, the Mighty Cycle isn't something to really write home about, but its sticker game is on point. The stickers that it featured were very reminiscent of, like, the Battle Ram. Just really neat, just, I don't know, intertwining Celtic / futuristic artwork. And to be fair, the color of the Mighty Cycle is very reminiscent of the Battle Ram. So maybe that was its inspiration between the stickers and the color. So yeah, it's really awesome for those facts alone. But when you take a look at the second Masters of the Universe Big Wheel that was released, I believe the second one was actually released by Empire and under the Big Wheel name, you won't think that one's as cool, because the second one is a human kid version of the awesome Masters of the Universe vehicle, the Road Ripper. Now, this Big Wheel, I am kind of shooting in the dark that it was actually produced by Empire. The one thing that I have to say makes me not think that it was because it did not have that power brake feature that the official Big Wheel brand had. But forget all that. Look at this thing. It has the awesome green dragon-like head that was featured on the Road Ripper toy. And, I mean, this is like the human, real-life version of that awesome toy. Other than, you know, with the cool pullback power feature of it. Anyway, it is very reminiscent of that awesome Dungeons & Dragons Big Wheel that we discussed in the first episode because of that awesome draconic head on the front. I mean, both of those side by side with the Gremlins one would be some of the highlights of anyone's toy collection. There we go. That was another 13 of the best Big Wheels of the 1980s. And after doing this and looking at these awesome Big Wheel plastic tricycles, I have to say thank you to everybody that motivated me through the comment section to revisit this very popular topic. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everybody. And I take inspiration from those comments. So, if you're new around here and you enjoyed this, or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you will be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad, and stay dorky.